The most generous man on the Washington Nationals beat joins us as he does every single week. It is Matt Weyrich of NBC Sports Washington. I am the host of the Locked On Nationals podcast, Josh Neighbors. It is Patrick Corbin day / night / podcast, whatever. That's good or bad, depending on your perspective. But we're gonna get down. We're gonna get down to the bottom of this. We're gonna talk about Patrick Corbin, the struggles, and most importantly, where do the Nationals go from here? Because it's quite the quandary. That's coming up on today's show.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, once again, I am Josh Neighbors of Locked On Nationals. Joining us, it is Matt Weyrich of NBC Sports Washington. So, Matt, you were at one game out of the 3 games, not saying you're lazy, but you were at the one game that's really going to focus on this weekend, which was the Friday night Patrick Corbin start. First of all, how are you? And second of all, your thoughts just initially on the start of the other night.
I'm doing well, man. Only got to go out there for one game, but, the Nationals didn't play super well throughout the weekend. So, it was kind of the same result, all 3 games. But Corbin was pretty roughed up in Friday night start against the Giants. Only went 1 2/3 innings, couldn't make it past the second as he allowed all 7 runs that the Nationals gave up in that game in that 7th inning. A couple of tough luck hits for sure, but did give up a 3-run home run to Austin Slater, his first home run of the year. It was also Corbin's first home run allowed of the season, despite the fact that he had gotten off to a slow start. So it was just an all-around bad outing for him. And ultimately, the Nationals are still looking for answers there.
So we're at the point now where it's like we're entering the second season of this being bad. Actually, you said you had some numbers. So hit us. Just give us the numeros, because I talked about individual pitches yesterday and how the numbers on the individual pitches themselves really bad. What kind of facts do you have for us tonight?
Here are the results. Since the start of the 2020 season, Patrick Corbin leads the major leagues in losses, runs, and hits allowed. His ERA and WHIP are both the highest among all pitchers with at least 200 innings. That's 60 starters over that span. And he's been worth negative 0.3 B-WAR, which is ranked 58th out of those 60, and 1.4 F-WAR, which is ranked 55th. So he is, anyway you slice it. In WAR, I think Madison Bumgarner was one. Jordan Lyles was there. I think I have the Fangraphs one here.
So at least there's one other bad contract we can think about on this one, Madison Bumgarner.
Yeah. It's it's no matter how you slice it, he does not look good. His slider, which was one of the most effective pitches in baseball, has really fallen off. His velocity on the pitch was supposed to be back this year, but the early returns on that are that his velocity is actually down from even last year, which was down from the year before, which was down from the year before that. So overall, that pitch has really become a liability for him rather than a weapon, and his inability to set up the fastball has really hindered him in just kind of all aspects of his game.
Well, I would say, the fastball part of it, you're right. Let's talk about that pitch, because to me, that pitch has to be effective to set up the slider, right? That pitch is supposed to be the I know what's coming, I can't hit it pitch. But if the other stuff is so horrible, that makes that one pitch that, that slider usually does not end up in the zone, right? It's a pitch that you kind of, typically speaking, is going to land outside. Yes, but it should. But, it's going to share the part of the plate that's supposed to be like or in, around, out of the zone, right? Just kind of on the edge, on the corner, whatever. But if you can't get there, if you can't work and get ahead, and that's something I've mentioned, seen a lot too. Like if you're not getting to those 2 strike counts, it's ball game. It's over for you. And he has not figured out a way, in my opinion, to make those pitches more effective. I was looking at the numbers yesterday. This is from Baseball Savant on where these what the numbers are on these pitches, but people are hitting 316 off the slider, which not terrible, horrible, awful disaster. But if this is your wipeout pitch that's made you all the money it's made you, that's That's bad. Then you look at the fastball. Teams are hitting 412 off that. And then the sinker, 391, the changeup, which he's only used a handful of times, is still 500 off the changeup. Like, it's a disaster in every single sense. Like there is no pitch really that's working for him very effectively, at least to its standards.
And the big emphasis that both he and Davey Martinez talked about coming into this year was getting down in the zone. He was leaving too many pitches up. It's why he was allowing so many home runs. They said, he's got a sinker too that he mixes in there. The slider, the fastball, he wants them all down. And of the 7 hits that he allowed in Friday night start, 6 were in the upper 2 quadrants of the zone. If you divide it into the 3x3 segments there, it was in the top 2, all but one of the hits allowed. So he was up in the zone the whole time. He was falling behind hitters early. He had, like I said, a couple of tough luck hits. And if you look at that expected batting average on the slider, even though he's allowed over 300 players to hit against it, his expected batting average is like a 167 on the slider. So it should be playing a little bit better than it is. But it's down in revolutions per minute, it's down in velocity, and it's up in the zone. And that's just not going to be a recipe for success for him. And, when asked about it after the game, he kind of just said he was, quote, still searching, which is really not what you want to hear from Corbin at this point when we're in year 3 now of these struggles. And he still has 2 years after the season left on the deal. I mean, the Nationals are going to keep trotting him out there every 5 days. Davey Martinez said as much in his post-game press conference. But, you have to think that at a certain point, you've got to do something, whether it's move him to the bullpen or consider, a salary dump type trade or something like that, or even a DFA. But the Nationals, for right now, you really have nothing to lose. They're not expected to win ball games anyway. So, if you can send him out there every 5 days to, eat 6 innings, that's great, but he's also got to throw 6 innings. He did not do that on Friday night.
He's got to throw 5. Like he's been over 5 once this year.
He hasn't reached 6. I know that.
And so, this is like that. That's what I'm talking about here, because there are so few options for the starting pitching for them right now. They are really up against it, and I think that's on them. They can't blame anybody else but themselves for not going out and getting more arms. When they were on the hunt for Anibal Sanchez, and I saw they were moving towards that deal, I was like, this is not good, because if that's just it and you're not going to go elsewhere, like that's not good enough. Their starting pitching last year was not good enough. And when your manager was out there complaining about the usage of the bullpen last year because the starting pitching wasn't doing you enough good, what did you do to fix that? You didn't do anything to fix that. And sure, there was hope for Patrick Corbin to turn it around, but you can't be just banking on that. And so now they're in a situation where, this weekend, Matt, none of their 3 pitchers made it into the 5th inning. None of them did. And that can't happen. Like this is, look, they're not supposed to be good. I get it. This is still a major league ball club, and they've got guys pitching like AAA pitchers out there. I think that might be a harsh assessment, but that's the reality right now. Those guys it looks like they brought somebody up to pitch the second game of a doubleheader. Every single game this weekend is what it looked like.
The Nationals bullpen leads all bullpens in innings pitched thus far this year.
It was good. The first 2 games, 12 innings, 1 earned run. So,
they actually, for most of last week, the bullpen was pretty much lights out.
Yes.
Even in these long relief roles, we saw Erasmo Ramirez pitch a couple of innings at one point, Paolo Espino pitching multiple innings. They were really relying on guys to kind of bridge these short starts, and to their credit, they were doing really well up until that 9th inning on Sunday when they gave up, I believe it was 6 runs or whatever in the 9th to kind of take that game, blow it out of the water. But the starters need to be giving them more innings. This is like we've talked about before, it's a trend across baseball, but the Nationals especially have really struggled to get that out of their starters. Adone has shown flashes of promising signs. Same with Josiah Gray. But you're right. The Nationals really needed to this offseason bring in an innings eater. And, that was kind of what Corbin was supposed to be this year. It's kind of what he was supposed to be last year, along with John Lester. And they just really haven't seen that out of him. He's been healthy, but he just hasn't been effective enough to give them innings, go deep into games, and to give their bullpen a break. Because when you have a bunch of young pitchers like they do, outside of Corbin, Anibal Sanchez hasn't pitched yet. Josh Rogers is, in his mid to late 20s. Same with Eric Fetty. I think actually Eric Fetty's maybe even 30 now.
Yeah,
He just
at
still
least
feels like,
29. Yeah,
he feels like a, forever 26-year-old guy to me. But
he is 29.
you know,
He'll turn. Yeah, he just turned. Yeah, he's 29.
but overall, the rotation is either young or old. There isn't a whole lot of in between, and that's kind of what Corbin is supposed to be. Is just kind of the guy who they can lean on every 5 days to give him innings. And so far, he hasn't done that. And it pains me to say that. I don't love
Yeah, no,
talking about
nobody.
that, but
Well, I mean, this
it is
guy.
what it is.
He was such a meaningful part of the 2019 championship. I mean, that's. Let's get to the bullpen stuff here in 1 second. First, quick word from our sponsors. Today's show is brought to you by BetOnline and BetOnline.net. It's your number one source for all things betting, stats, sports info, and more. You guys can find them at BetOnline and BetOnline.net. Baseball, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, the Washington Capitals, Matt, right? Who's their first round
Oh yeah.
matchup? I haven't even looked yet. Who's their first round matchup?
Well, it depends on if they can pass the Penguins in the Metro or the Bruins for the top wild card. But they can play either the Panthers, the
Yuck. Don't want that.
the Canes, or the Rangers. So anyone but the Panthers, really. The Canes have just
that's
lost
also
so
they've lost heartbreaking series to two of those teams, and the third one is really good. So, well, you might want to bet against the Capitals in these playoffs. You can do so at BetOnline and BetOnline.net. BetOnline, it is where the game starts. All right, so Matt, a reason why Patrick Corbin is so beloved is because he was a member of the 2019 championship team. And what was one thing he did very well in the playoffs? We always say, what do you do in the playoffs? Work backwards, right? Bring your best guy out first. Well, their pen wasn't very good, so who they bring out? Patrick Corbin. That was the guy they brought out, and he was so good in that role. If you were Dave Martinez, now we know there's so much going in, but let's just say, put your manager cap on. Would you go to the pen and say, all right, we're going to either sign somebody in the free agency or whatever to bring somebody to start games? This just isn't working. Or would you say, you know what, we're so bad and he's got to figure it out. We're just going to keep tossing him out there every 5 days. Which way would you go?
Well, I mean, it definitely depends on the payroll constraints that ownership is putting on the team right now. They're operating with a payroll that's about 50 million lower than their usual standards from their contending years. So, if that's kind of the limit that they're at, they really don't have many options. If they had signed a guy like Andrew Heaney, going into the offseason, he was a guy who, kind of like a buy low candidate who could turn things around. He's actually been great for the Dodgers so far, though he is on the injured list. Somebody like that could have been great, but they don't have him. So, if I'm Dave Martinez, I don't really see any other option other than starting him. You're paying him this kind of money. It's a lost year anyway. Yes, it's brutal to watch at times, but, if he can, take some time and work something out, it can only go up from here. So, for me, there's really no point in trying to make a drastic decision like moving him to the bullpen or something like that, because we really are losing any chance of getting any kind of semblance of value out of him. And I know a lot of fans want to give up on him already, but he's got a long ways to go. They're going to be paying him for another 2 years after this, and I'm sure there's deferred money in there. So you don't want to admit it's a sunken cost until you absolutely have to. And if the Nationals aren't contending for a playoff spot, there is no need to, try to change things around. Now, if you want to take a step forward next year and you decide over the offseason to move into the bullpen and give him the whole winter to, convert into that role, okay, I think that makes sense. But until you are ready to try and make that leap, I see no reason to take him out of the rotation.
I mean, Tanner Roark's available. You go sign Tanner Roark, put him as a starter. I just think it's painful to watch somebody you're paying that much money to almost get worse. Because so what was it? Not his last start, but the start previous. I think Nationals tweeted something like Patrick Corbin has got us in the game.
Yeah,
or something like that.
Kept us in it or something like that.
And I'm like,
gave us a chance to win.
Gave us a chance to win. This guy's getting paid nearly $100 million. The next 3 years, we're like tweeting about how he's giving the Nationals a chance to win. Like that's tweet beside like it can't happen. So I am unlike you. I am more towards like do something drastic because anything to get this guy back on any kind of track. And I mean any kind of track is like that one start he had where his kept us in a win is not enough for me. I mean, like stringing single good innings together in the bullpen, or being a long reliever, or taking the Austin Voth role, whatever it is. I think it's worth doing if the Nationals could go out, like sign two guys who are starting pitchers and just slide them in the rotation. I mean, you're throwing out not saying call them scrubs, but like you're throwing out a bunch of guys right now who are either trying to prove themselves, or are young guys, or are trying to hold on to their spots, or whatever. Like this is, Aaron Sanchez started the game for them the other day. Is he going to start again for them this week? I know there's an
I believe
spot.
Josh Rogers has been pushed to the bullpen for at least one turn of the rotation while Aaron Sanchez gets another start.
There you go. So if we're going to give Aaron Sanchez chances and, push Josh Rogers to the pen and do these kinds of things, you're admitting a defeat to a certain extent. Like, this team is not going to win. Look at the rotation. Look who's in it. They're not going to win games, those guys right now. So I am more towards the idea of maybe pull the trigger on something drastic. Once again, I know it sounds drastic to say something like that, but anything to get this guy's mojo back. And it would not, in my opinion, though, you wouldn't be doing it as a permanent move. So I hear what you're saying about the offseason thing of like trying to get him ready to go, but I'd move him to the pen with the idea of, hey, look, you're going to be a starter for us, but at this point right now, you're not helping the team. Us having to yank you before 5 innings every time, it's not helping. So do you think there might be something to that? Like, hey, just give him the pen to get more confidence back?
Maybe, but I think that it would be a huge knock at his confidence because Davey Martinez and Mike Rizzo have both expressed nothing but confidence in him up until this point. Every start, we talked to Davey and he says something along the lines of, I believe that he's going to go out there and deal today. They at least outwardly, they believe that, and maybe when Steven Strasburg and Joe Ross do make it back in the rotation, there's a bit of a roster crunch. If you have a couple of guys that are pitching well and you want to keep them in the rotation, then maybe you could have a conversation about moving Corbin. But, if you do take Corbin out of the rotation right now, I mean, the next best option is Josh Rogers or Aaron Sanchez. I mean, it's not like they're really dipping into a deep well of starters here. Cade Cavalli has only pitched 4 innings in each of his starts. I don't think he's made it through 5 at all. So he's not ready to make the jump in the major leagues. Evan Lee is one of their top pitchers, still on the 40-man. He's still in Double-A. Gerardo Carrillo just went on the injured list. I can't remember what for, but their starter depth is hurt. It is not good. So they really don't have a ton of options. I think if there was one thing you wanted to try, if you were really feeling desperate about jump starting him, is maybe try, piggybacking an opener with it. Say like, hey, we'll get somebody out there to pitch the first inning. They first face the first 3-4 batters, and then you don't have to worry about facing the bulk of the opposing team's lineup until the 5th or 6th inning. So maybe that gives you a better chance of going deeper into the ball game. But, at the end of the day, he's not even really giving them that much innings anyway. So I don't think that they are really – they're going to trot him out there every 5 days, and it's just going to be something that Nationals fans are going to have to endure for a while.
Here's the thing. It's that bad that we're talking about it, right? Like, it is at the point now where this is that bad. Because, you could say, well, it's a small sample size of this season, but – It's just, this is more.
No, I mean, we pulled out the numbers since 2020.
Right, exactly.
It's a big sample. This is over 200 innings. I think he's pitched 251 innings in the last 2+ years. So that's a big sample.
No, I will say, like, the one thing about him that we can't talk about like other pitchers is that he's been healthy. So I guess it's the one plus. He's like, at least he's out there to start every 5 days.
He's tied for the 10th most starts over that span. He's made 46 starts, but he's 23rd in innings. So that kind of shows you that disparity there, where he's not going deep, where he's up there in the number of times pitched, but the innings is not stacking up with, his peers.
All right. So one more quick word from our sponsors. Today's show is brought to you by Rock Auto and rockauto.com. Best place to find parts for your car or truck, any type of part, anything you need, they've got there. Why choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership? Go to rockauto.com today. They are more reliable. They are a family-run business serving auto parts customers online for nearly 20 years. Go to rockauto.com today. Use Locked On in the How'd You Hear About Us box. That way they know we sent you. Amazing selection, always low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. That's rockauto.com. Matt, also the offense was horrific this weekend. To me, it is this offseason when they signed Cesar Hernandez, like God love him, decent player. Actually, his numbers right now like really on par with what I thought, but this lineup needs more than that to get going at this point in time. It's just, I think it's pretty clear at this point that, offense is down across baseball, and that's not going to help out a lineup like this if the ball's not flying out of the park. This I'm saying this lineup that's built to hit a lot of home runs, but if your 3, 4, and 5 is Soto, or 2, 3, 4 is Soto, Cruz, and Bell, they might suffer from that a little bit. And also it's not a lineup feels like it's constructed to do a lot right now too.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, we talked a lot about the back of the lineup and its struggles, and how that is contributing to their lack of production, but also the complete dearth of offense from Nelson Cruz has been huge. Hitting him right behind Soto. He has a couple of home runs, but that's really all he's been able to do this year. And they're paying him to be that rock solid middle of the lineup guy. And trust me, it's 15 games in or whatever. I highly doubt that he's going to be putting up these numbers the entire year. But for the Nationals' relative lack of production, that's a huge part of it. I mean, I think they going into Saturday, so after Friday night, they had gone 100 straight innings without scoring at least scoring fewer than 4 runs every inning. So 3 runs or fewer in any. They didn't have a 4-run inning that whole time. And then they extended that streak through the weekend. So that's now 118 straight innings that they haven't had a 4-run inning. I mean, that's pretty bad. You need these big innings, where you're, hitting guys with runners in scoring position. The Nationals are up there in runners stranded this year. They've actually had among the most RBI chances in baseball, but they haven't been able to drive guys in. And that you can call that timely hitting, which is something that is theoretically going to even out, kind of regress toward the mean throughout the season. The Guardians are on the other side of that. They've been the most effective team with runners in scoring position. So if you're trying to short a team, Guardians might be the team because their offense might be a little fluky. But the Nationals are really struggling when moments where it really matters. And even Soto, for that matter, with how few RBIs he has so far this year, it just kind of shows that if they are going to compete, this offense needs to be better than it is, because the pitching staff, as we know, is really not going to hold its weight.
Yeah, since they had the off day last week due to the weather cancellation to last Monday, so it's a week away from when you and I were talking a week ago on the 18th. 6 runs, fine. 1 run, 2 runs, 3 runs, 1 run, 2 runs, 3 runs. And then before that, even 3 runs, 4 runs. So, this was an offense built off of upside, right? You'd hope Nelson Cruz was kind of the guy he was. You hope Cesar Hernandez would be like, his average. You hope that Alcides would keep it up. You hope that Lane Thomas would be the guy last year. You hope Keibert Ruiz would come in and hit well. And I mean, Michael Franco gives him credit. He's done well. You'd hope Victor Robles would turn it around. There's a whole lot of hope. Now, I will say on the positive side of this, it might be showing that there actually were not as many reliable long-term guys as we thought. Now it's only 18 games in, but like a lot of these guys have kind of looked like, much like Patrick Corbin, like the guy that they have been in recent history, right? Lane Thomas looks more like the guy that was in St. Louis than he was the guy in Washington. Victor Robles looks more like the non-2019 Victor Robles that we thought he might be. Alcides looks more like the guy that was out of the league for a bit of time for the Nationals. Got him. Am I off on that?
No, I mean, those are all fair assessments so far. Alcides Escobar's among the lightest hitters in all of baseball. I believe his average exit velocity is still the lowest among qualified players. Lane Thomas, as you mentioned, he was a 172 hitter in St. Louis, came over the Nationals and really hit well, but that BABIP was pretty high, so he's come back a little bit. I still like Thomas's upside. I think that he can be a fourth outfielder who maybe starts 100 games in a season here or there and gives you solid 700 750 OPS baseball, but so far he's obviously been pretty slow. Keibert Ruiz has actually kind of been hit or miss. He has a bunch of multi-hit games. So when he's on. But when he has also had a lot of, over 3s, over 4s. So,
and the power's not there yet for him there. But I don't know if that's a baseball thing or a him thing.
I've noticed he's had a lot of deep fly balls that are caught at the warning track.
Right.
And, maybe later in the summer or with a different baseball, the lack of humidor, all that kind of stuff, maybe that would be different. Those would go over in the fence. So I think we have to kind of wait and see how he does, as the weather heats up. But overall, this is not what the Nationals were hoping for. Like you said, it was a lot of, kind of hopeful, high upside guys hoping that they kind of turn things around, reverse the narrative. But overall, I mean, just listen to these on-base percentages. This is the 9 most started guys in their lineup. 273, 446, bet you can guess who that is. 275, 207, 290, 255, 186, 405, 260. So it's Bell and Soto are both over 400, and then everybody else is pretty much under 3. And that's just not going to cut it. Yadiel Hernandez has started to hit well lately, and they're getting him in the lineup more. But seeing him on defense and left field, it can be a little scary sometimes. So that's kind of where we're at.
I hope the fans, in a non-ironic way, start chanting "lock him up" whenever Josh Bell gets a hit. Now, I feel like that'd be appropriate.
I mean, at this point, they don't have many other hitters that they can get super.
He might say, "No, I'm going to get some money somewhere else." He might say, "You guys wouldn't sign him."
He's got Scott Boras as an agent, so
yeah. Well, that's true, and I bet now with the way he started, and I'm sure he'd cool off, whatever. But if I'm Scott Boras, I'm like, we're good. Like, like we're good.
Well, the
right
Nationals when I talked to him on opening day, the Nationals had not approached him at all for an extension, not even to begin talks or anything. So they seem. I mean, Mike Rizzo said it. They're not talking with anybody until they figure out Soto's future, and Soto wants to see the team win.
Here's
that means there's just nothing coming.
Oh, that doesn't make much sense because when that person it's such a massive contract, that like. I do small business, no offense, it's not small business, Josh Bell, but like compared to $500 million, to compared to you can go and buy your own sports team money, it is somewhat small business. So like you can do smaller business, I think, just because a guy is priority number 1 doesn't mean you can't do other business, in my opinion.
Well, I think also, as we've kind of heard the reporting on the team being put up for auction or whatever.
That would put the stop sign on that too, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we haven't seen them sign a multi-year deal in 2 seasons. Their payroll is down $50 million. The commercial real estate business that the Lerners have their money built on has suffered. If you are selling the team, you could make the argument, and we've talked about this, that having Soto locked up long-term makes the Nationals a more valuable product, but the Nationals overall are in debt as a team. And they're already owing Max Scherzer 10 or 15 million for the next 6 years. They owe Steven Strasburg like 45 million a year, including both his current contract and deferred money from his last contract. They're obviously paying Patrick Corbin for a few more years. If you sign another guy like Josh Bell, you're looking at a lot of expensive contracts that whoever would be buying the team would then have to inherit. And, the Nationals, if they are being sold, might not consider anybody else worth signing because it might actually devalue the product, even though Bell is a good player, having his money on the books when the Nationals are in debt and they really don't have, a lot of payroll flexibility because of the other contracts they already have, that might actually hurt the selling price. So unfortunately, that's kind of where we're at right now.
All right, Matt Weyrich, NBC Sports Washington. Where can people find you and your work and all of its variety?
Yeah, you can check me out on Twitter @bymattweyrich and follow all of my written work over at NBCSportsWashington.com.
Awesome, Matt. Appreciate your time, man.
No problem. Thanks, Josh.